Hey guys, and welcome to another Friday Facts discussion video. I'm Exterminator. Thanks for joining me. So, the latest Friday Facts obviously came out yesterday, Friday, and there's some very interesting things to discuss here. So, just a very quick recap for anyone who is just interested in just the kind of the overall thing and not the discussion part. They discuss reactors and how they're going to work and some changes to boilers in regards to their size and how they work, as well as a new biome they're adding, which you can see down here. A quick preview. It looks fantastic, but that's kind of it. So, as always, it'll be linked in the description, the Friday Facts, if you want to go read it for yourself. But if you aren't interested in the discussion, then you can continue watching from here. So, this part is just kind of just an update about the team members. But then we go down here to the reactor heating and boiling. So, essentially, what this covers is that they are changing how boilers work a little bit, and then also their size, which is pretty interesting. You can see here the implementation of nuclear power will require some changes to the way the boilers currently work. So instead of heating water inside their fluid boxes and then passing it to the next one, they now output to a separate fluid box, which is kind of confusing to me, but essentially what this resulted in was an unworkable boiler with the current 1x1 size. So what they've decided to do is change the size now to 3x2, which is quite a bit larger than before, and that also changes the power output and fuel consumption. Right, so what this means is that they're going to be bigger. Here, these are obviously placeholders, but they are quite a bit bigger. And then they also have a changed power output and fuel consumption, which pretty much means that any of the previous steam engine ratios are just completely gone out the window. The 1:14:10 or the other one that Zuri and Will and those guys like to use sometimes. I forget what it is. It's like 3 to something to something. I forget, but any of those ratios are going to be completely out the window, which is important to note because this is pretty much going to break any factory you have that uses solely steam power. So, any old factory you have, like when 0.15 comes out, any factory you had that you try to load in that was built before that like uses steam for primary power, it's just not going to have really power because this ratio is just going to be completely wrong. So that is something to note. I'm not too upset about it. I mean, I don't really use steam for that long anyway. I think a lot of people switch to solar. So yeah, they haven't calculated the new ratio, but that will be something fun to calculate for sure. So I look forward to that. And then we go down to the nuclear thing. And this is where it gets interesting, right? So they've kind of set this up in like 2 different stages, I guess you could say, which I feel like maybe could have been done a little differently. So when you just use boilers by themselves, they still act as a normal boiler, right? You still insert the fuel, as you can see in this picture, and put it into the boiler. It heats the water in the new fluid box or whatever they're talking about, but like it heats it itself, right? But now with the nuclear thing, if you go the nuclear option, you no longer fuel the boilers and they no longer do the heating, right? So there's kind of 2 different ways you can use the boilers. You can use them like normal, or with the nuclear thing, the nuclear reactor thing itself actually does the heating and then passes it to the boilers, which I guess just act as like heat exchanges, since they don't really heat the water itself anymore themselves. So you can see here it corrects... has made the first prototype and like the mechanics associated with it. Each reactor has these heat connectors, which are these red things you can see here, which can hook up with the heat pipes and boilers. They're adding heat pipes as well, which is interesting. Heat is then transferred through these connections where it is used to boil the water into steam. This is all subject to change, but below is how a simple early nuclear power station could be set up. So I kind of misphrased it a second ago when I said the boilers don't heat things themselves. They do heat the water, but they don't create the heat themselves when you use nuclear. So based on this, essentially how this is going to work is this nuclear guy here just creates heat and then passes it into the boilers, which then heat the water with the heat created from the reactor rather than fueling themselves. You can see here we do have an inserter with the requester chest inputting into this. Now we don't know what is being put in here, so this would be interesting for speculation. I'd like to hear your thoughts on this as well as anything else. What do you guys think? Do you think maybe they're going to add like a new type of uranium ore or some other something that we could use to fuel this? Or I wonder if they're just going to go the very simple route of just having normal coal or solid fuel or something to fuel this, which I would be a little disappointed in. If they're adding this, I would hope that they would go as far as to actually add a special fuel for it. So you do fuel this, and then it just passes the heat through here. You can see these heat connectors, which then heat the water and go through the steam. It says this design is, of course, very inefficient as the steam engines cannot use all the power available in the steam. Later designs would incorporate the steam turbines and cooling towers. So this is interesting. So this is only one part of it, right? To get like a fully functional, like full-blown design, you would also need to utilize new steam turbines and cooling towers, which I'm not exactly sure how those would work. They haven't gone into that much detail with them, so that will be pretty interesting to see. And I'm not that well versed in like real life nuclear power, like exactly how it works. I have a general idea. So I'm not sure how realistic they're going to make it or not. So we'll have to see on that, but that is something interesting to speculate on. And the heat pipes also add a layer of complexity to the puzzle, while the incentive towards larger nuclear power blocks adding to the semi-fractal nature of expanding your designs. So this kind of, I want to move on to the biome here in just a second, so this video isn't too long, but something kind of my thoughts with this is I'm very excited for nuclear power just because it's something new. Part of me is just purely excited for the graphics. Factorio Des, they do really cool graphics, and they get better and better as time goes on, as we've seen. I'm just excited to see the graphics for the nuclear thing and the turbines and the cooling towers, but it'll be cool to have an alternative, although I feel like it's not necessarily as... I feel like it could be more of its own thing, if that makes sense, right? Because how they're doing it here is it's still essentially, you're still doing steam power, right? The nuclear thing here is essentially just doing the heat, and sure there's going to be the steam turbines and cooling towers, which may mean that you don't use steam engines anymore, but if that's the case, that's cool. But so far from what they've really explained, it seems like you're still pretty much just using steam engines for the type of power. You're just changing the way that the engines actually get their like steam or whatever, which that's cool, that's great, but I feel like unless they just make this extremely powerful, which they haven't given us any real numbers yet, so unless they make this just like super good in terms of power generation and stuff, I think for like really big bases and the mega base builders, solar is still just going to be better, which is kind of a shame. And the reason I say solar is going to be better is just simply for the game performance reasons, for how solar works compared to steam. I covered that in my performance tutorial video if you want to check that out, but essentially the steam engines, right, they all the game has to actually calculate what's going on for each one and stuff, but with solar and accumulators, they changed it a while ago where it pretty much just all merges together. If you just have a solar field with tens of thousands of solar panels and accumulators, the game just pretty much counts that as one thing. It essentially has almost no impact on your game performance, whereas this stuff does. And I don't know if they're changing that in 15 or if it's even possible for them to change, but if they aren't, or if it's not possible, then for really huge bases that just need tons of power and performance, I think solar is just going to still be better, but we'll see. It'll be really interesting to see what happens. So there's that. That's pretty interesting. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And then the Red Desert Biome, this just looks fantastic. Jericho was spent the last few days producing new rocks and stone types of different sizes and bushes and trees and stuff. And they've kind of changed how it works here, because previously they kind of had it on a grid, and the grid was still somewhat noticeable, and it had restrictions as well. So now what they do is they actually just kind of do different decals using big patches that are working independently off the grid. So by using them, we can get a lot of detail for the terrain. As you can see here, I mean, this is extremely detailed. And as a side effect, the square grid pattern gets broken, and the feeling terrain is much better. I agree. I mean, this looks phenomenal. I mean, this looks, for a 2D game, this looks incredibly 3D, which is really nice. And they have a new destroyed railroad kind of thing going on here, as they mention. And yeah, so this is the new kind of Red Desert Biome, which is super cool. I'm wondering how it's actually going to be in game. Like for this render, they may have just kind of spiced it up just for the preview, or if it's actually going to have like these big rocks and stuff. Which, while it's cool, I'm wondering how they're going to do that in terms of what you're going to be able to like walk through and stuff. Because, I mean, it would be absolute hell trying to drive or even like walk with some exoskeletons through a desert like this with all these rocks if you can't go through them. I mean, this would just be a massive pain, as cool as it is. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with that. Either way, though, it's really nice, very nice variety. I love the look of this. And then the last thing to cover here, they've decided for the high resolution graphics that they're gonna just render everything in high resolution and then kind of rescale and output the stuff in normal resolutions rather than just doing two separate outputs. So yeah, we decided not to render any more in normal resolution from Blender. Instead, we're going to render just in high resolution and rescale the output bitmaps to normal resolution using a bilinear interpolation. This gives a better result, and it is sharper and saves us time and headaches, which is good. More time saved for them means sooner release for us, pretty much. And yeah, they're figuring out like new rules for generating the map, and that's pretty much it. So this one is really interesting. I really love this. This is just fantastic looking. I can't wait for that. Will be interesting to see what they do with the nuclear power and how that's actually going to work fully. Again, they haven't given that many details on it, so at this point, a fair bit of it is still speculation and stuff. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Any thoughts and feedback and just like discussion, I'd love to hear it and see it down in the comments section. Will be really interesting. Again, my opinion, I still think that unless they do something like super powerful with this, that solar's still going to be better for game performance, at least. Now, they did mention at one point they were adding like Mark II steam engines and stuff, which maybe if they do that could kind of level the playing field, although they also said they were doing Mark II solar and accumulators, so that would just kind of put you back where you are now. But anyway, we'll see. As always, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Leave a discussion down in the comments. And yeah, if you did enjoy, leave a like. And until next time, I look forward to seeing you all. And do take care.